Welcome to the Process Podcast.
From new agent to broker owner.
My name is Travis McClure. This is my co-host, Preston Guyton. Welcome to the Process Podcast. This is Travis McClure, my co-host, Preston Guyton. Preston, how you doing today, sir?
Good, man. Good. Can't complain.
So as of yesterday, is a big deal to me, you have committed to a second half marathon.
Yes. March. What's the date?
I believe it's March 4th, whatever that Saturday is. The first Saturday in March is the Myrtle Beach Marathon, one of my favorites.
Yeah, so March 4th, under 2 hours.
That's a good commitment. I'll be so that marathon's a little bit different. Usually you'll divide up. There's that's also a full marathon, and you get a good amount of runners. A lot of people come to Myrtle Beach to run that one because you can use it as a bigger marathon qualifier. Like if you wanted to qualify for the Boston Marathon or New York Marathon, and Myrtle Beach is very flat, so you get a lot of people at that marathon. It's a pretty cool atmosphere compared to the last one you ran. You'll have probably 3 times, if not more, the amount of runners.
Yeah, I think you said, 3,000 or 4,000, something like that?
Yeah.
Is it even more than that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then at some point, and they all run together. That's the one thing I like about that course, if they keep it the same, is out of the gate, it's a mixed crowd of people running a full and people running a half. And you don't split off till probably about 3/4 or so away through the half marathon. The 2 marathons kind of split off. But for a long way, and I mean, you're in this like this group and this cluster of all these runners, and it's a very cool feeling.
Yeah, I'm excited to hopefully get lucky and have good weather again.
Yeah, I've been training pretty hard too. I'd like to. It's a bucket list item for me is to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So I'm gonna go after it and try and see if I can get. That's a 3:10 time, 3 hours 10 minutes for my age group.
I'm going to finish my half marathon at under 3:10.
I jokingly said we'll finish at the same time.
Yeah.
But all right. So today's topic for a show, Preston, we actually had someone send in a request to our TikTok channel. TikTok. And the question was, can the guys make a podcast on what makes a great brokerage? Benefits, mentorship, things like that. And I think that's a great topic to request. A gentleman named Cam put that out there for us to talk about, and we're going to dig into that topic. But first and foremost, I want to say before we jump into that, Preston, I feel like we want to, like, my first point in if you're using that as a basis to say like, hey, which company should I work for? It's a very subjective topic, right?
Yeah, I mean, a brokerage that's good for one person might not be good for somebody else. So it's going to be, the big part of that is figuring out what fits you, your personality. Look at the people that are part of that brokerage, and just make sure you fit in there. So it's, there's a lot of great brokerages. They're set up and run differently. It's really just finding the one that's, fit what you want and what you want in the brokerage. So there's the normal like training and everything else we could get into. But when you look at it, like what's good for one person might not be good for somebody else.
Yeah. And I say, and you say, hey, what you want, but I also say, as you got to say, is it what I need? Is it the environment I need to be successful? And you said not all companies are a great fit for an agent, and not all agents are a great fit for that environment. So I think the number one thing to think about when you're looking for a great company or a great brokerage to hang your license, you got to think about those things, right? You got to keep that to the forefront. So number one thing I wrote down, I kind of brainstormed a little bit. Like if I was looking for, I approached, I love the question. I said, well, if I was going to go out and like shop for a company right now, what are some of the things I would look for? Number one, I would say, like, what are the tools that they offer? And we've talked about that a bunch on this show. But the tools you got to look at really are first and forefront, like what is the technology package that they offer me as an agent to run my business?
When you're looking at tools, for me, I go straight to tech. So, do they have a CRM? Do they have a lead platform that generates leads? What does that look like? What are the technologies that they use? Because if you're heavy on the tech side, that type of thing is going to be important to you. And really for anybody, like no matter what level of tech you're at, a CRM is definitely something that should be very, very important.
And number one, like if I was going to research anything in terms of tools, it would be that I would ask for a demo Like you're saying, like, could you interview companies, right? When you're going around, let's say you're a new agent or experienced agent, I would ask for a demo. Hey, is there somebody from the company that can sit with me and demo your CRM? Because every company is going to say they have one or they have one. And not all of them are the same.
Yeah.
Or I would then leave that meeting and say, okay, they told me it was Follow Up Boss. So they told me it was this or that. Do as much research as you can on that tool so you know, and like read the reviews, see what people say about it. Because that's your number one tool in terms of running your business around follow-up, around back end to a website. It's the number one tool you use on a day in and day out basis. And you want to make sure it's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, tech, when you think of that CRM, and I think that's going to be different for like, existing agents that have been around a while. I mean, a lot of them probably heard of Follow Up Boss. So,
yeah.
So somebody that's experienced might not need that, but it's definitely something to ask for and make sure they have.
Right. So the next thing I would look for, and something near and dear to your heart, is what I call lead generation opportunities.
Yes.
Right. So whether that's leads coming in from a website, maybe they offer some sort of cold calling group, whatever that is, like you want some sort of lead generation opportunities to be part of your decisions. Talk about that a little bit, Preston.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some companies that are prospecting based they're more focused on the listing side, and then there's going to be some that are mixed where they're both. They do some listing prospecting and then they do like lead generation from pay per click, or whether they're big on SEO or whatever. It's definitely that piece of it really helps because you obviously need to have your SOI side no matter if it's prospecting based or whatever. But it's good to have those opportunities coming in because that gives you at bats. It gives you a chance to practice, and if they have a database and that they have whether they have ponds set up or whatever they do have, it's definitely very helpful that if you're getting in the business or even an existing agent that's been in the business. I mean, for me, like it would be a requirement for the company I go to have give us so many opportunities that are company leads and however they generate them. And there's tons of ways to generate leads.
Yeah, I think in our market, specifically Myrtle Beach, we're a huge transplant market. So a lot of realtors who come here or get into the business, they don't have a lot of times a huge sphere of influence database that lives here. So that's really important, I think, to agents' success that are in that boat. The other thing I would ask about that is some companies you go to, especially if you're newer to the industry, they want you to be just a buyer's agent. Or they say, hey, you have to work your way up to be a listing agent. Some companies will let you be a mix of the two. And you got to figure out like do you want to just have that niche of being a buyer's agent? Or are you looking to build a business of both, and make sure the company lets you do that as well?
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely, in the lead gen side too, like it's, a company that generates leads, like there's, even in our market, I mean, in a lot of the leads or a lot of the buyers that are coming in, like you talk about agents that are, not necessarily from this market. Well, a lot of the buyers are coming in from other markets. So they're searching online. So you need to make sure that, you're with a company that has those opportunities where they find the company and all that. And there's not really a lot of, what I see in running pay-per-click, which across the country and in our local market as well, is a lot of companies aren't consistent. They'll do it for a little while and they stop doing it. Maybe they're not getting the results they expected within 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, whatever it is, and they stop doing it. So, even in our market, there's not a lot of people consistently generating leads.
So what question would you ask somebody on an interview like that around lead generation if you're going to ask a question?
Yeah, I mean, really for us, you talk about opportunities, right? Like, I don't really like using appointments because the appointments can vary. It's really hard to,
Sure.
You could have a really strong week and hand off a lot of appointments, but I would just ask, how many opportunities do you provide your agents every month?
Right.
What is the average amount of opportunities that, we're set up to where we generate about 30 to 40 opportunities per agent a month. And that's what we go off of. So that's really what I would ask, and how they generate those leads. Like, there's a big difference in, say, a Facebook lead to a pay-per-click lead to organic leads. Just, see where those leads are coming in from.
Yeah, that source definitely is important as well. And depending on your market, like our market, like you've said, is a lot of transplant buyers. So you want that source to be those transplant buyers, right?
Yeah.
And for us, that's crucial in a market like us, a second home market like us, because a lot of times those transplant buyers don't already have a relationship with a realtor in the area. That's the opportunity for you to be that realtor.
Yes.
That's why that's a big deal here. The next one, which is near and dear to my heart, and kind of put it all together, Preston, is leadership, mentorship, and training. Right? You should look for that type of environment and things like that happening in the company that you're reaching out to. So talk about that a little bit. You can break them down separately if you want.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, if you're a new agent, obviously mentorship is huge. I mean, does the company offer some kind of mentor program? Do they offer some kind of training program? It doesn't necessarily have to be an individual mentor. It could be within a training. Do they have a 6-week, 8-week program of onboarding and training? What does that look like? And then from a leadership perspective, do they have are you looking for more of like a leadership team, or are you looking for more of like a broker owner / they're the broker in charge as well? A lot of companies like that don't necessarily have a big leadership team with a lot of training. So it's just looking at that and do the leaders sell? Are they actively selling real estate and actively running a team? So if you're a newer agent, that's, definitely the mentorship, the training program is very important.
Yeah, and there's pluses and minuses to all of that, right? Like if they do actively sell, then you have to ask yourself, well, how much time can they dedicate to training me?
Correct.
Right? Versus they're actively involved in the industry, they're in the trenches every single day. They can give me a lot of really good insight, right? So there's that back and forth, that ebb and flow. I think another thing to think about, something I love about our leadership team, is the diversity within the leadership team, right? Like there's agents that come here that might not jive with Preston, but they get along really well with somebody else here named Josh, right? Like Josh is just a totally different personality, or even myself or Nick, right? So we have different personalities on our leadership team. And I'd actually kind of look for that as well, because the person you're sitting down talking to in that interview process might not be the person who is going to be your mentor. They might just be a recruit. That their job literally might just be to get you to join the company, right? And some bigger companies, they have recruiters, right? So I would ask, who would be the person that's going to be my mentor? Yeah. Who's going to be my go-to person if I have a question? You want to make sure you jive with that person, not the person you're sitting down across the table from necessarily, because that might not be the person.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely good to ask it, and it's a good point to ask those questions. And who, if you do have questions, in the future, you join that team, you're expecting it to be the person that interviewed maybe. And if you didn't get that cleared up, that's definitely a question to ask and make sure you understand.
The other thing I would look into too, if I'm a brand new agent, and we talked about training quite a bit, training is crucial to you when you're brand new. You need that guidance in getting started. So you want to know what that program consists of. But I'd also ask, I would say, hey, who is somebody I could reach out to who's been through your training program, who's had a lot of success?
Yeah, for sure.
They should pretty quickly and easily be able to give you a name or 5, right? To say, hey, these are the people to reach out to that have had a lot of success from our training program. And they can kind of tell you, they could probably give you a lot more insight than I could.
Yeah. I mean, asking for, to speak to agents that have recently joined is definitely a good idea as well.
And I preface that with, essentially, sitting down and interviewing with real estate companies is kind of weird. It's like a job interview, right? But you're hiring them. Essentially, you're the independent contractor.
Oh, yeah.
You're interviewing them. So all you're doing is you're asking them for references. Just like if you applied for a job at Microsoft, they're going to ask you for references, right? You're asking that company for references. Hey, who can I reach out to who's had a lot of success in your training program? I'd love to talk to them and just pick their brain a little bit.
Yep.
The next one I wrote down is another one kind of important to me, and it's environment, right? And what I mean by environment is there's a lot that goes into that. Let's touch on accountability, right? That's an important one, right? So is it an environment that's going to hold me accountable? And for example, at Palms Realty, the company that we are connected to, we have systems in place with accountability, right? We have point expectations per month, right? We have an expectation that you come to a sales meeting, things like that are in place to hold agents accountable to their productivity, right?
Yep.
So talk about that a little bit, Preston.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about the point system, it's a whole, if there's agents that are in here all the time prospecting and everything else. So we built the point system to where they got to meet that minimum point requirement in order to be on leads the following month. Because there's, we have a lot of agents, and there's a lot of agents that, take this really serious and in here every day putting in the work. So, we want to make sure the ones that are putting in the work are also getting more opportunities. So, that's why we put that point system together. But then you talk about accountability, it's not only the accountability of that, but also like the accountability groups, we have those set up as
Yep.
well. So if you even want to go beyond what we offer, then there's accountability groups, which those are run. You would know more about that than as far as how many weeks that is and everything else. But those are 6 weeks. Is it 6 weeks?
Yeah, we do 6
Yep.
weeks on, 2 weeks off. 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off with our groups, and we have multiple groups within the company. And our director of training, Trip Love, does a great job running. You post about Trip a lot.
Yeah,
he does a great job running that. And I think what Trip does so well, and he obviously mentors our new agents and he runs those groups. What Trip does so well, what a really good coach or mentor will do, is he does a great job of telling agents what they need to hear to get better, not what they want to
Yep.
hear. And that's a really important thing. Like if you're out there looking, the gentleman who put this question in, he said, I'm looking for mentorship. Look for a mentor who's going to tell you what you need to hear to get better. Right. I'm not saying like you have to find someone who's going to hurt your feelings or anything like that, but there's a lot of people out there who will give you just like that verbal fluff. They're going to constantly tell you what you want to hear. And that's not necessarily accountability.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
That's not helping you get better.
No. And it's, given the accountability is tough as well, but, but you got to be able to receive it, right? Like you need to be able to receive it without being offended. So you need to have that relationship with somebody where, they could tell you if you're messing up and, be able to take it and change or make the changes necessary to, to go where you want to go. So accountability is difficult to take, but it's also very difficult to give as well. Honest accountability. And you need to be in a relationship with your business with somebody that actually you could take that from without finding offense with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's extremely important. The other thing around environment, which I think is also important, is what's the vibe when you go in the office, right? Do they have an office? Is it a virtual company, right? There's so many other things that go into. So if you go in the office on a Wednesday afternoon, how many people are there?
Yep.
Especially if you're a newer agent, I think it's important to be around other people. That's how you get better. Sometimes more experienced agents, I found sometimes they want to be left alone a little more, and that's fine also, right? But again, like go back to the beginning of this conversation we're having, you got to find what works for you, right?
Yes.
Not what you want, but what you need, right, to be successful in your business. Talk about that a little bit, Preston.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the office and being around the culture and figuring out what that culture is, because I tell people, culture necessarily isn't something that you should have to market to. It should be something you feel.
Yeah.
So I'm always wary of the people that are, oh, we have great culture. And you really don't know what that is, and what's great culture for one person might not be for the other person. So, I think getting in the office and really that's the part you really can't. I mean, it's hard to do that before you join, right? Like it's hard to, let me go test out the culture before I join. I mean, how do you?
I'll give you a story. When I first got started in real estate, I went around and I interviewed with some companies and I asked if I could attend a sales meeting.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you guys do any kind of sales meeting? And I went to a couple sales meetings where like, that's what I was just looking for vibe. Like, hey, does it jive with me and my personality? What's the energy like in the room?
We've done that as well. Like we've had agents come join Palms where, they've asked to come to the sales meeting. Some of them come to 2 or 3 sales meetings.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a good point. I'm glad you pointed that out. Is if you're trying to get a feel of, the way things are run and everything else, go to that sales meeting. And if it's a company of 100 people and 10 show up to the sales meeting, it should give you a pretty good indication of how much effort they put in those sales meetings and how important they are to their whole company. Because, if they're important to the company, there'd be a lot more, than 10% showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like a number we track as a company, like our agent engagement, right? Kind of lets us know where we're at and providing value and culture and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd want to know that before the sales meeting, like how many people are at the company. Like you said, it's 150 and there's 20 people at the meeting. That should be a red flag, right? As to like, and I get not every realtor says stuff. You're not going to get 100% participation at any company. That's just the reality of the independent contractor world.
Yeah.
But you should have some engagement there.
Yeah. I mean, you should definitely see at least 50%, I would think.
Minimally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're looking at like a minimum, there should be 50% people there if those meetings are, and then some companies it's mandatory, right? You have to be at the sales meeting. So, those are the things that you could ask as a new agent or an experienced agent. if you're somebody that likes to be left alone, sometimes work from home and that, are things like meetings, are they mandatory?
Yeah. Well, and again, there's some agents who are listening to this and like, hey, I do this part time, or like, you know what I mean? That isn't important to me. I work from home. I work from my car. And that's, again, going back to the beginning of this conversation, it's like, you got to figure out what you need.
Yeah.
To me, if I'm a brand new agent, I want to be around as many people as I can, asking questions, getting my questions answered, being around people doing the real estate activities and seeing what they're doing to be successful. I'm going to copy that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's, to me, the agents who are brand new that do really well, that's what they've done. There's a track record of they've been successful because this is what they've done. They've gone into the office, they've been around the other agents who are taking action every day, and they're implementing that own action in their business that they're getting up and running.
Yep.
So, well, we appreciate the question. I think this is a good topic to tackle. We look forward to more questions coming in on TikTok or YouTube or whatever. Just put it in the comments or direct message us. We'd be more than happy to tackle some other questions or topics out there. Preston, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
Guys, have a great rest of your day. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya.